Hello, I'm Lynn Onstot with Joplin Insider, City of Joplin show to tell you a little bit of behind the scenes going on at the city. Today, I'm pleased to have the Honorable Judge Chuck Brown of the Municipal Court. Welcome, Judge Brown.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm more than happy to be here today.
Well, I'm really glad you're joining me today because I'll be honest, I don't know much about the court system.
That's a good thing.
That's what I thought too. I thought, well, at least I can't say been there, done that.
But we hope by the time we're finished today, you'll have a good understanding, so the next time you get a ticket, you'll know exactly what to do.
That's exactly right. It's been a while, so knock on wood, I hope I'm not jinxing myself. So I'll be honest, we all have those violations every now and then.
It can happen.
Watch the school zones. That's all I'm saying, folks. Watch the school zones.
Very true.
Yes. Okay, so let's get started. Can you provide an overview of the municipal court and the types of cases that come to court?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Joplin City Court is a division of the Jasper County Circuit Court, and of course since Joplin is in Jasper County and Newton County, we see cases that are both in Jasper and Newton County. But anytime that you run into a situation where you get stopped on a city street and get a citation, or if the Joplin police are called to a disturbance, or if you have a code violation in the city or a dog at large, those are the type of cases that come to our court.
Okay.
And we'll hear basically traffic cases, and then domestic matters between couples, and then also peace disturbances, and then finally code cases, alleged violations of the Joplin Property Maintenance Code or the Joplin Animal Code. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of cases that we hear. Okay.
So, for example, if I'm driving through Joplin and I receive a ticket, maybe it's not just speeding, but maybe my headlight's out or a license plate violation, but perhaps I don't agree with that ticket. Of course, I'm very cordial with the officer and accept it, but then what do I do if I'm not really pleased with that ticket?
Well, the first thing that I would commend you for is being cordial in the field, because the officer's just doing his or her job. Right. And your opinion may be different than their opinion, and that's exactly where the court comes into play. So once you receive that citation, you'll be given a court date, and that's an arraignment date. That'll be anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks after you receive that citation. Then you'll come to the court, which is at 303 East 3rd here in Joplin, and you'll be checked in through the metal detector. Okay. And then you'll go in and have a seat in the courtroom, you and about 40 or 50 of your best friends who have also received citations. Okay. And then there'll be a video that runs that tells you what your rights are in Joplin City Court. Okay. And those rights are like any other criminal defendant in any other court in the state. You've got the right, you're presumed innocent. You have to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And you have a right to advice of an attorney. You have a right to be silent. You don't have to say anything if you don't choose to say anything. And you've got the right to confront or cross-examine witnesses. Okay. But basically what's going to happen is after that video runs that explains these rights, the judge will call your name, and you'll come up and the judge will read the charge to you. He'll tell you that the city alleges that on a certain day at such and such a location, this is what happened. And he'll ask you whether you wish to plead guilty or not guilty. If you plead not guilty, which is your right, then he'll ask you whether or not you're going to have a lawyer help you in your case. And if you say no, then he'll set the case down for trial with you representing yourself. Okay. If you say yes, then he'll continue the case for about a month to give you time to talk to a lawyer. Okay. So let's assume that you've entered a plea of not guilty, and it's a traffic offense that you want to represent yourself in. So on a Tuesday afternoon, you'll come back to court, and we'll have a trial in your case. First, you'll have a chance to visit with the prosecutor about your case, maybe tell him or her your side of the case to see what he or she says about that. If you want to, you don't have to. But then eventually there'll be a trial. If you can't agree and you still feel that you want a trial in a case like that, we'll have a trial. You'd be sworn, and the other witnesses would be sworn. The city will put on its evidence first, and you as the defendant would have the right to cross-examine or ask questions of the city's witness. And then after the city has finished their case, you'd have the right to put on whatever evidence that you had, which would include the right to testify if you choose to. But you don't have to testify because you're presumed innocent. But once you decide to testify, then anything that you say can be used to determine whether or not you're guilty of the violation with which you're charged. So let's assume that you do that and things don't go well. Okay. And the court finds you guilty of the offense. The judge will then set a penalty and set a sentence. If you've represented yourself through this case, it'll just be a fine. It won't, there's no jail time involved in a case where you represent yourself. And if you know that the city is going to be seeking jail time, we would have told you that a long time ago.
Okay.
But let's assume that that happened and you were able to represent yourself and ultimately lost. The judge will then set a penalty, which would be a fine and court costs. It would be up to $500. That's the limit of our jurisdiction, and which it typically wouldn't be that. Typical fine and court costs for a moving violation like you received when you were stopped would have been probably about $130 to $150 fine and court costs. If you can pay that in 2 weeks, then the clerk will give you a promise to pay, and you'll be able to leave, or you can pay the fine as you go out the door.
Okay.
If you need longer than that, then you'll have a chance to visit with the compliance officer, who will set you up on payments, or if your situation is that you'd rather do community service or can't afford to pay the fine, then you'd have a chance to do community service to work off your fine, so to speak. Now, if after all that, and you've lost at your trial, and you feel that the judge made a mistake, you have the right to a whole new trial, appeal to novo, but you've got 10 days after the court announces its verdict to perfect that trial. And then you'll go before one of the other judges who will hear your case all over again.
Okay.
And then that judge would make a decision based upon the facts presented.
Okay.
So that's kind of the process from beginning to end of when you receive your citation in the city of Joplin.
Okay. Well, I'm going to back up just a little bit because when you were talking about the process starting, you said you may or may not want to talk to the prosecutor. To me, in my mind, that would be like I'm revealing my case to the prosecutor to give that person, the prosecutor, more evidence, so to speak, against me.
That's what you'd have to consider if you want to do that, because the city prosecutor does not represent you, obviously.
Right.
The city he or she represents the city, but they're reasonable people, and their interest is seeing that justice is done, whatever justice is. And if you believe that there's something about your case that you want to tell them so that they'll take that into consideration, then this would be a chance for you to do that. But if you don't want to talk to them, you don't. That's just your opportunity.
Okay. Well, and I could imagine that there are different circumstances people might have that they want to tell them that they were, had a medical emergency or something of that case. That would be maybe information you'd want to share with the prosecutor at that point.
Could be. Or you can, if we back up in our hypothetical and you've entered a plea of guilty at the arraignment, the judge is going to ask you if there's anything that you want to tell me about your case.
Okay, okay.
And oftentimes we'll hear, well, I was on the way to the hospital, or the sun was in my eyes, or any type of excuse. And we'll take into account how we feel about that excuse in making a determination as to what the appropriate penalty is.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm sure, how long have you been with the court and serving as judge?
I've been the municipal judge, I think, for about 3 to 4 years, and then I was an associate judge before that for about 5 or 6 years when Judge Kirchin was the municipal judge.
Right, and you've practiced law for how many?
About 31 or 32 years now.
Right, so you're very familiar with the process and the different information people might bring to you.
Yes, I think so.
That you know how to judge it, so to speak.
Yeah, that's really the biggest challenge, I think, in being a judge, whether it's in just the City of Joplin Municipal Court or any other court, I think, is people come and tell you their side of the story, and the most difficult thing is to try to figure out in your mind whether the facts are as they're telling you or whether the facts are as they wish they were when they're telling you that story.
I see.
That's really the most difficult part about being a judge. In a City of Joplin situation where we see so many pro se defendants, that's folks like yourself representing yourself at trial, is they don't have the schooling or the experience on how to represent themselves well in city court. So although we don't help them, we try to find out what the true story is so that we can make an informed decision based upon what the alleged violation is. So
the information that's presented to you, when you call them up, what information, you have the ticket in front of you.
I just have the ticket.
And basically it's pretty short in form, and I don't even remember if there's a place that they can write a lot of information about it, or? When the officer gives you your citation in the field, he or she writes notes on the back of that citation. Those notes go strictly to the prosecutor so that the prosecutor can make a determination as to the charge. But I, as a judge, never see those notes until if you enter a plea of guilty, I can ask the prosecutor to see those notes.
That's after I ask you what your side of the story is also. Because again, in a situation like that, when you've entered a plea of guilty, I want to hear from both you and the prosecutor as to what happened in your case.
Does the person know what's on those notes as well?
Probably not.
Because that's when the officer goes back, writes the ticket. I mean, he's written the ticket, but then he's sitting there making further notes. Okay.
That is correct. Now, if you represent yourself in trial, or if you get a lawyer to represent you, then there's a way through our procedures that you can, through discovery, obtain information from the city about what their case is. But typically, when you come to an arraignment and you've entered your plea of guilty, then you'll tell me what you want to say happened, and then the prosecutor will tell me what he or she happened, and then I'll make a determination as to what the appropriate penalty is.
So, you know, you were talking about 40 or 50 people in court at the same time. So you start first thing in the morning.
Yeah, we have an arraignment docket on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And those typically run between an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending upon the number of people that are in that docket. And we'll go through each case in the docket individually. And a typical case takes between a minute to 3 minutes, depending upon what everybody wants to say about their side of the case. If they enter a plea of guilty. Again, if they enter a plea of not guilty, then they simply get another court date, or they get a chance to talk with a lawyer who will represent them.
Okay. Now, you were talking about the dockets. So there are different dockets, so are there different days for different subjects? Is that what docket?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Monday, being the first day of the week, is a busy docket because after we do the arraignment, we'll see the individuals that have been in custody over the weekend. And then on Tuesday afternoon, or Tuesday morning rather, we'll have another arraignment docket at 8. At 10 o'clock, there'll either be an attorney docket, that's folks who have lawyers to represent them for that docket, or we'll have a code, excuse me, a code docket, which is a particular docket that's alleged violations of Joplin's property maintenance code or Joplin's animal code.
Okay.
Tuesday afternoon, pro se trial docket, that's when you come for your trial. Those start about 1:30. We'll go sometimes as late as 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Oh my gosh.
Depending upon the number of witnesses involved and the number of cases that actually go to trial. Wednesday morning is a public defender docket. That's a docket for individuals where the city is going to be seeking jail time in their case. But the court's determined that based upon their circumstances, they don't have the ability to afford a lawyer to represent them. So the city actually has a public defender that represents those individuals in jail. Thursday morning, an arraignment docket at 8, 10 o'clock attorney docket, Thursday afternoon attorney docket and attorney trial docket on Thursdays. Typically Friday the court is closed, at least as far as I'm concerned. Court offices are open then.
Right, right. So that gives you a break from those, but again, the court staff has to do, I mean, there's a lot of paper, so to speak, or a lot of recording. I shouldn't say paper necessarily, because
there's a lot of paper,
yeah,
and you're right.
Electronic.
You'll see some of the officers now have what's called an automatic ticket writer in the field that is a computer system that automatically enters that information into the computer system throughout the process. Other officers have handwritten tickets, so those are actually, they travel through the various departments in the city to eventually reach the court.
Right. So when we talk about all these staff members, I know you are appointed or hired by the city council, is that correct?
Appointed by the city council, yes.
Okay. And then this municipal court has a division of employees that we have a court administrator taking care of those.
Yes.
So these different court clerks, I guess, is that their terms?
They're court clerks.
So are there specific ones that have specific responsibilities, or do they all come to court at different times?
There'll be specific clerks that have specific responsibilities in court. There'll be a sentencing clerk that will actually enter the sentence that the judge decrees. There'll be a clerk that sits to my left that gives continuances or gives reminders of when court is. And then there's a whole number of clerks or other clerks that are in the office handling the phone calls, handling all of the
ones
organizing
that I
the files.
All the calls to,
Yes.
because I get a lot of their calls that,
One of the things that we've been doing is cross-training. So we're working to make sure that if somebody's ill, that there's a clerk that can cover those responsibilities.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of different responsibilities, a lot of very busy days and hours that, to have somebody missing in the cog, there's kind of this whole process, and one of the cogs is broken or not broke, missing. It can definitely slow things down, I imagine.
That is true. Or if the computers go down, That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
Because everything's electronic, even at the court?
Everything's electronic. If you're in your hypothetical, if you've entered a plea of guilty to your charge, I can, from the bench, I can check out what your record is in the city of Joplin to see if you have similar charges in the past or if this is your first time.
Okay.
So
yeah, because that obviously is a deciding factor, I would imagine. I mean, it's
Yes.
something that enters into.
And then I also have electronically the Joplin City Code so that I can look up and see what ordinance you're charged with violating to make sure that the city prosecutor in a trial has put forth all the necessary elements to find you guilty. Because, as I said earlier, it's the city's burden to prove you guilty of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt, and they've got to prove each element of the crime or violation in order to get a guilty verdict.
Now, the city prosecutor, does she attend every?
One of them attends every court docket. Yes,
We have one prosecutor and two assistants?
we have two prosecutors.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they're both one full-time and one part-time
Okay,
prosecutor.
maybe that's where I got
And they have different dockets. They, within their office, they have organized their responsibilities so that they're both, so that they cover the dockets appropriately. But there's always a prosecutor in the office. I mean, in court.
In the court.
Too. Yes.
So when I come in, is there, I kind of serve as public information officer of the city. I'm kind of the go-to. If I don't know where to go, start with the PIO, start with public information. Is there a go-to place at the court? Like if I walk into the court, will I know what to do? Or will someone greet me and say, have a seat, watch the video?
The place not to do is just to walk into the courtroom when the court is in session, because we have none of your files in the courtroom. So one of the hints that I would give a defendant is first come early or come on time.
Okay.
So that your file can be pulled. Usually, the sooner you arrive, the sooner you're done. So that's something to remember. Second, if you don't, for whatever reason you don't get there on time, don't just not come.
Okay.
The biggest mistake that we hear is people that say, well, I missed my court date and I got scared that I didn't want to come. I was afraid at that point.
Right.
If it's a traffic ticket, if it's something like that and you've happened to miss your court date or you're late, just come to court so that we can get you through the system and get you without having a warrant issued for your arrest. That's not a good thing to have happen, is to be arrested on a Friday night on a ticket that you didn't know you had or forgot that you'd had from 3 or 4 years ago.
Right, because I have
Which
heard
can
those.
happen.
I have heard those stories that and they end up sitting.
They sit because unless you bond out of jail, if you get arrested on a Thursday, sometimes you won't have a chance to see a judge until the following Monday. But you'll have a bond set to be able to get out of jail. But if you don't post that bond, you won't have a chance to see a judge until the following Monday.
Not a good way to
Not
spend
a good
the
way to
weekend.
spend the weekend.
No. Well, I'm trying to understand, and I don't mean to belabor the issue, but you say come to court, if I miss my traffic ticket, arraignment date, but come to court anyway. But you say don't walk into court.
Checking with the clerk.
Checking with the clerk,
Yes.
who is sitting at the windows in the court offices. So,
Right as you come in the main door by the
Okay.
fountain, to the left is the court clerk's office. To the right is the police department.
So anytime you have a question, don't just walk into the court. Go check with the municipal court staff and find out exactly, here I am, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm here, and they can help you.
The bailiff there can help you also, but typically it's the court clerk.
Yeah,
You
because you could interrupt court, like you say, if you walk in there and
yeah.
it's chaotic and
Yeah, that's not good.
no, I could imagine, and it's going to kind of put a black mark against you, I'd imagine.
That's not good.
Yeah, I remember the old scenes of Night Court, so I don't know if you ever watched that show.
No. I used to.
A long time ago. Long time. Yeah, I'm dating myself, but yeah. So, well, let's see what else we wanted to talk about. So we talked a little bit. You said that one of the hardest challenges is making the determination.
It really is, because when you're a sitting judge and you're sitting there with an arraignment docket, for example, the judge will be making, decisions from about 8 o'clock. Snap decisions from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning on a whole number of cases. So it's a very intense, you have to do a lot of concentration to do that.
Yeah. So do you bring in protein bars or Wheaties or
Just
what's
coffee.
your trick?
Just
coffee.
coffee.
Lots
Just
of coffee,
coffee.
huh?
Just coffee. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. So, yeah, you probably spent a lot of late hours in law school and are used to having to do that, right?
Sure, yeah. Both Judge Podoletsky and myself are part-time city judges.
Okay.
So we both still have private practices.
Okay.
So we alternate. Typically, we alternate weeks. He'll be on a week, then I'll be on a week. So that way we still maintain our private practices. and still have, and then are fresh, so to speak, when we have our week on the bench. So it's a good balance having a part-time judge like that.
Yeah, I could imagine, because I could see a little burnout very quickly.
Well, with that type of workload and those types of decisions over and over again, yeah, it's good having a part-time judge where you have two judges that alternate the weeks like we do.
Right. Now, let me ask, is that something that possibly if the public had appeared or one of the citizens had appeared before one of the judges before and just feels maybe they didn't get a fair, on a different matter?
Sure.
You know, can they request a different judge? Can they say, I don't want to come today, I want to come next week?
No.
Okay.
They can request a change of judge.
Okay.
And just like any other litigant can in Missouri, they have, litigant has a right to request one judge change. So if they change from myself, they'll get Judge Podleski and vice versa.
Okay, and they do that. They still need to come on their arraignment date.
And file, yes, they would come on their arraignment date and then file an appropriate motion to do that.
Okay.
If they, I would advise, of course, that if somebody feels like that, they probably might want to visit with a lawyer to make sure that they follow through the process appropriately, because pro se litigants are held to the same standard insofar as court rules as our attorneys.
Okay.
So although we attempt to work with pro se litigants through the system, the rules are the rules, and if you're going to represent yourself, then you have the same rules that apply to you as to a seasoned lawyer that has hundreds of cases in city court. So sometimes it's good to have a lawyer to help you.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah. So do you have statistics in your head? Do you have any idea how many come through the courts?
Well, I
don't want to put you on
some
the
of my
spot.
statistics are a little old, but I will tell you that our court, several years ago, the courts administrator did a study, and of the citation or of the court cases in Jasper County, 60% of those court cases run through Joplin Municipal Court.
Wow.
So we're a very busy court. Last year, I think we had around 18,000 citations written last fiscal year, which ended November or October 31st. About 18,000 citations written in the city, and those citations would come through our court then.
That's a lot of work right there.
Yes.
I applaud you. Thank you for your service, because I can imagine that.
There's a lot of, we're the end of the food chain, so to speak. I mean, there's a lot of folks that work on those citations as they go through.
Yeah. Now I want to back up even further. Again, to the hypothetical, we talked about. You have a fine, and maybe you can't pay it. You said you have about 2 weeks, ideally, to pay that. But you sit down and you talk with the compliance officer, and there's some different options there.
There are. Assuming in your hypothetical you pled guilty, the judge has ordered you to pay a fine, and for whatever reason you can't pay it then or within 2 weeks, then you'll see a compliance officer. The compliance officer will set you up on a payment plan if that's what you want to do, so you pay so much a week or a month, or set you up on community service, where you'll provide, you'll do work at one of the local charities, and that would be credited towards your fines.
Okay, and they set all that up for you
They will.
and coordinate it. You don't have to call the charities and find out, do you want me, do you not, or?
No, that's all set up for you.
Okay.
You'll complete a affidavit about your finances, and then the compliance officer will visit with you about what would be an appropriate monthly payment, or what would be a good community service site for you.
Okay. They called up our website, which I really appreciate. We hadn't gotten a chance to do that. A lot of the information that we're talking about is on the city's website. Very easy to find at joplinmo.org, and then go into the departments and municipal court. So it's very easy, but there's a lot more to it than I realized.
Yes.
I don't mean to sound so naive, but luckily I haven't had
haven't had to see us yet.
Right. Other than I used to go into the lobby and I saw a lot of people there, and for various reasons. Now I do get different calls. Again, I'm kind of a that one-stop shop at the city for the phone calls. They don't know who to call, so I'm happy to take those calls. And sometimes they're calling. They're wanting to talk about a divorce, or they're wanting a restraining order. Make a court payment, that kind of thing. Some of those I know what to transfer, but the divorce is not done here. It's done through the county.
No, we don't hear divorce cases, although we'll get the same question sometimes from a litigant when they come to the bench, ask us about a restraining order, typically in domestic charges that we will see. But again, we're dealing only with alleged violations of Joplin City Code, and those potentially would be a state violation, and those litigants would need to go to the county courthouse, not Joplin City, not our courthouse.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so at that point, typically, you know that even before they come to the arraignment, that they're referred on, or depends on if they've even mentioned that, I guess.
Well, they typically won't come unless they've got a little sheet of paper in their hand that is a citation.
Okay.
But during that process, then sometimes they'll ask about other legal issues that they have. And of course, we as judges can't give them legal advice. Nobody in the courtroom can give them legal advice. We would just refer them to an attorney if they have questions.
Now, when you say, do we have a list that we provide, or they just need to go look through phone books or directories and find an attorney?
Yeah, we would not refer them to a particular attorney. The Missouri Bar has a referral network. Or the best referral is friends or family who they've used.
That makes an excellent point. Well, you mentioned, show up on time. That's one of the important things to do about coming to court. What are some other good tips? We have just a few more minutes left, so I want to get those.
My one advice would be, if you're upset with what the judge has done or somebody else in the courtroom has done, it is not the appropriate forum to take out that emotion there at the bench.
Okay.
Because rarely, but if somebody does lose their temper and we can't get them controlled, then we do have the power to hold them in contempt and put them in jail. That rarely happens.
Yes.
But if you're upset about what happened, keep your cool, keep your composure, and go through the process that I've outlined. Also, dress appropriately if you can, and act appropriately at the court. And if the typical rule is if you show court staff courtesy, the court staff will show you courtesy back. That's what we strive to be courteous, and nobody wants to be there.
Right.
But now that you're here, let's all work together to get you in and out so that we can all get on with our lives without you spending any more time here than you want to spend here.
Well, and that makes perfect sense. I want to hit really quickly. I do know that the court, in talking with Lamont Ratcliffe, the court administrator, the municipal court office hours are changing in March, and they're closing at 4:30, which is really just a 30-minute window to allow them to get ready for the next day and wrap up business. But in paying fines, that's where they go, is to the court office.
Or they can. I think they can pay their fines online too.
That's right.
And I think we take credit cards, of course, and checks and cold hard cash if you have to.
Yes. Well, and of course they'd get a receipt so they can prove that they paid it, that kind of thing. And that's the thing on the online payments. I do want to remind people that you can always go to our website and look at that under departments, municipal court, and you'll see that online payment. It's kind of a long link. I don't know if we have that. Well, there's joplinmo.org, and then once they go there, they would go to departments. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up, I'm getting the sign to wrap up. So is there anything else that you'd like to hit on that we haven't covered?
There's one thing that I did want to mention if we had a chance, which is the city received a grant last year for a mental health court, which is really a cool program that we've developed. So many of the folks that end up in jail in the city have either undiagnosed or untreated mental health issues. So we've got this with Ozark Center, a cooperative where we come in and we try to get those folks out of jail, get them into some type of stable environment. And we've seen about 30 people through that mental health court process. It's just a work in progress, but we're really excited about what that gives these folks a chance to get out of jail and get back in society without spending time in our jail.
Right, so, because a lot of times it may be that condition that has created the circumstances.
We see a lot of those issues that get them there in the first place, unable to deal with people, unable to deal with society. So once they get in our jail, we'll then try to help them with some professional help with the Ozark Center to get some treatment and get out.
What a great program.
It's brand new.
Again, it shows, like you said, that we're working with the citizens. I mean, again, it's not the best place to have to go on a Monday or Tuesday morning or whatever time, but when you're here, we're going to be courteous. We ask you to be the same, and we'll work together to resolve the issue.
If you have to go to jail, make sure you get there at lunchtime because the food's not bad.
Okay,
Other than that, not good, not good.
Good point, good point. Well, I think we're going to wrap up for the day. I really learned a lot, and again, I hope this is my only time that I have to talk about court. But,
I hope so.
But if I have to show up, I will know what to do.
Justice is blind, Lynn, so be careful.
That's right. So, well, this concludes this episode of Joplin Insider. I do appreciate you watching us, and if you have any other questions or any ideas for future shows, please contact me at the city. Thank you very much.